Interesting conversation. Do stay with us.
Thank you, and the show continues. Okay, so one of our very old fans of the show is back. He's been away. He went on a hiatus. He's back, but he wrote something, and that would form like the opener for this topic today. So Dr. Ikmosa says the strength of the system is best tested in times of crisis. Innovative thinking is necessary at the level of exam administration to solve this problem. He says this is a hydra-headed problem with economic, social, and technological implications. However, addressing the logistical concern is the immediate solution to this problem. He was writing about the education part. But the part I want to bring in is where he talks about it has economic, social, and technological implications. Therefore, innovation needs to be brought in. Can innovation be brought into the fight against corruption?
Question mark.
The president yesterday officially affirmed the suspension of Mr. Ibrahim Mago as the acting chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and appointed Mohammed Umar to take charge, coming after Mago was probed by the special presidential panel reviewing the activities of the anti-graft agency. But to help us understand all of this, in the studio we have Olumide Fushika, who's a senior advocate of Nigeria. Thank you for joining us. And from our Abuja studio, we have architect Ezekiel Nyaitok, who's the convener of Nigeria First. Hello, architect. Is he there? I can't hear him. Okay. Well, we'll get back to him. Architect Nyaitok. But yeah, I love the fact that he's smiling. But let's start with the lawyer. Mr. Fushika, what hit you, or what was your first thought when that news broke about, not the official suspension, about the fact that the head of the anti-graft agency was being, allegedly, no, the news at first was that he was arrested, social media blogs, then he was invited for questioning. He's being questioned.
He was taken for
questioning.
Because he wasn't, he was actually taken.
Okay.
He was
So
taken
what was
for
your first
questioning.
thought?
Well, I wouldn't want us to reduce it to the issue.
It's not.
Which I think is one of our problems in the country. Build up lessons. When we quote and unquote fall below our expectation, I think that anyone who is familiar, who has dealings with that institution, wouldn't have been surprised that. Well, the surprise is that the only surprise would be, oh, they eventually got to do this.
Okay, let me get Nyaitok to weigh in on that. Architect Nyaitok, your first thought when you heard the news?
I really didn't have any first thought. I just felt, I hope that it's about time that we start to do things right in this country. So for me, I really didn't have any first thought, because anybody who knows what's going on in Nigeria knows that a day will come when these issues will be revisited. So for me, my prayer was that I hope that was the beginning of that day. Secondly, maybe as we further our discussion, I'm concerned about the bigger picture concerning this country, because we really don't know how the global system operates. We really have not sat down to strategically, intellectually, and cerebrally look at how to address the problems of Nigeria. If we are seeking to have foreign direct investment in this country, what are the parameters? What are the things that are important to them? Mr. Magu was the poster boy for crime fight and everything. And I know the nonsense that's going on must be addressed, but it must be addressed tactfully. We need to know what signals we are sending out. Everybody, every country has problems. Every country has corruption. But there's a way for international perspectives you handle that corruption. I believe that what was done was just another of our crude methods of seeking cheap popularity. There were better ways, and I'm very disappointed with the current government because I wonder when some of these things will change. There are many ways of killing a rat. You can kill that rat very well in a way that your neighbors are happy with you. And you can kill the rat such that even the killing is more of a problem to your neighbors. And they're like, what's going on here? I think as we advance the discussion, we get into more details.
I'll stay with you, Acting Yaituk. You said something about the fact that it appeared as if you want to do something, but there's no clarity around this thing you want to do. Is it a question in project management? They'll talk about defining, first of all, the project. What is that project you want to go and carry on? And then you now break it down into phases. Who are the stakeholders? At what point do you begin to say, is there a scope? Is there a deadline? Is there a beginning and an end? Is it a question of defining the project, its beginning and end? Is that where we are?
Beautiful. You are supposed to be a media person, but you are coming into my area, project management, and you couldn't have put it better. And I really want, you see, do you know? Let me ask you a very simple question that's going to almost jolt your mind. There's EFCC, there's ICPC, there's corruption. Are we aware that EFCC is just financial crimes? Stealing money. And that's just an aspect of corruption. Corruption is wider. Corruption is more vast. And the body that handles the wider aspect of corruption is ICPC. What do we hear about ICPC? Corruption goes into ethics. Corruption goes into values. Corruption goes into nepotism. All these are the different dimensions. And a country, the government, where one of their three fundamental offers to the country is fighting corruption, has never even stepped up to define corruption, to define the project. What is corruption? What is corruption? A man who is sectional, nepotic, is that person corrupt or not corrupt? You know, it sounds funny, but that is corruption. There are so many dimensions, variables of corruption that we have not even defined a project in 5 years of an administration. That is why the thing about Magu has become so large, because we think that corruption is, there was something that President Jonathan said. Unfortunately, I mean, he probably was not a man given to words, in terms of, diction and, choosing words probably. When he said stealing is not corruption, what he really was trying to say is the thief is just one part of corruption. Stealing is just one part of corruption. Corruption is wider. Now, let's come to Magu. If your stepping stone, your primary offer to a country is how to fight corruption, before we talk of economy and maybe security, let's start with corruption. Common sense tells you that for something so important, you start by defining, you go into recruitment criteria to start with. Then you now talk in terms of methodologies and things like that, how we're going to, but no matter how, first, you define the project. Secondly, no matter how this man is going to implement the parameters for the product, he has to have the capacity, the competence, the capability. What are the factors that will make people have confidence in him? Number one is he is extremely knowledgeable, enlightened. He has what you call the competence. He has the capacity. He has the capability. He has that. Second, he has the track record of being incorruptible. There's a name that you call today and they'll say, wow. For instance, I'll give you a very simple name. If you call Father Kuka today, I mean, people are likely going to say, hey, good man, but can he do it? Do you understand me? There's another name I'll call, and people say, hey, that guy, that thief. Oh. Do you understand me? So the question was, how competent was Magu all round in terms of cerebral content, in terms of relevant knowledge, in terms of exposure, in terms of physical capacity to withstand the stress, in terms of his mental acumen. Then you now go into his past. What sort of a man is he? Is he an incorruptible person, a man that will put his foot down, a man to whom his integrity is more than anything else, a man who is willing to walk away if you ask him to sign a document he does not believe in? And then you now say, what sort of template working document are we going to give him? I mean, we ask him during interrogation, your fight, how do you want to do it? The Senate screening. He now comes and no, the experts say, no, that's anachronistic. The world today has gone beyond catch a thief, prosecute a thief, throw him in prison. We don't have money to feed prisoners. And a man says, my approach is going to be proactive. I'm going to stop it from happening. And they're like, that sounds good, that makes sense. Now, how do you want to do it? And he says, technology. Number two, I'm going to tell you that the people that I'm going to give this country a clean image. People have to see us as clean. So we're going to do back and, the front end and the back end operations. Instead of all this poster of this man is corrupt, that man is corrupt, this man is corrupt, the other man is corrupt. We're going to do something that is going to go behind. We're going to have the best tracking system, the best interrogation system. We're going to catch the criminals. We're going to put them inside house. We're going to recover the loot, and we're going to nail them. We don't need, let's start to project Nigeria as a neat country. This is no longer happening. When they brought in the TSA, we saw what it did. So when a man talks to you that you know that he's ready for the business.
Okay,
Pause, Mr. Ayaitu. Can you please put a pause? Thank you. Mr. Olumide Fusika, for a government that came into power riding on, we are going to fight corruption, we are going to fight corruption, the president is incorruptible. How do you think this government has done in this fight?
Well, it's the answer is obvious. If the person that you put in charge of the fight is now himself embroiled, as being presented now as corrupt.
Not yet. Not yet.
Well, alleged.
Thank you.
Alleged. I mean, that is not. So that says a lot about the fight against corruption. And I think they've had enough opportunity to assess and know that this person is not, not necessary. But, we bring a lot of politics into these things. Well, I was also a bit, I can say I was guilty, like most Nigerians. When, for instance, the Senate rejected him the last time, we all went, oh, why did they, maybe because of the personalities involved at that time, because he was also coming up to say he's fighting them. Oh, well, he has allegations against them. And we say, oh, it's because he has allegations against them. That's why they don't want to confirm him. So because we are looking for heroes in this country. That's the truth. We all genuinely want heroes. And when somebody gives that impression, we jump on we are never, we sometimes are not so critical about, but people begin to doubt when, for instance, I think it was on one of your programs, and this man was asked, okay, how do you institutionalize the fight against corruption? And he was talking about buildings and all that. If, they were monitoring properly, at that stage, somebody should have, do we have the right person doing this job, and so on and so forth. Beyond that, and that's why I said we should not personalize it. We should not forget that this is a commission. So, when you say a commission, there's a board.
Yeah.
So, Magu is just like chief executive.
So, in this case now, I wrote something here, said institution versus individual. Now, he's the acting chairman of the commission. There's a board. So, if the acting chairman, according by all ethical principles, he's not supposed to operate independent of the board. So if at the point he has questions to answer, what does that say of the board?
That's what I'm driving at. And it's not about EFCC alone.
Yes.
You see all these commissions, NCC, this, that, and all that. They have commissions, they have boards. If you have interactions with them, you begin to wonder, whether, I think those boards are just a place for politicians to put their cronies and all that so that they meet and collect sitting allowances or something like that. They don't do anything. Because if you have a commission that is actually doing its work, all these things we are hearing now should not happen. And if it was happening, the board should have been able to discover and, done something about it. Well, again, when you have a board that wants to do something about it, they get disbanded. Take the instance of, I think it was the one on pension or something. Is it NSI? When the
PENCOM.
Is it PENCOM or
NSITF.
I can't remember the particular, the one with health management, NHI or something.
NHIS.
And the board was raising issues about the DG, The minister came in and all that. And the DG was so powerful that he was able to, get his board disbanded. So when we are talking about institutionalizing this fight, it goes beyond, having a DG or whatever title, the chairman of EFCC and so on and so forth. The quality, the structure is there. I'm not disagreeing with my colleague speaking from Abuja. It's not as if we have not conceptualized it. We have. That's why you have ICPC. You have EFCC, each with its own defined role. They are not supposed to be. You have the police as well, But who are the human beings that you have now put in place to implement what you have defined? If you don't have the right type of people, not only as DG, as chairman or DG or whatever, but also as board members, independent-minded people, knowledgeable people who can stand up and say, look, what you are doing is not right. You have a problem.
Okay, just hold your thought there. We'll take a quick break and we'll come back. When we come back, we're looking at this duplication of functions for a particular thing, and yet that thing is not achieved. How do we work around that? We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. The matter of duplication of functions, let me swing this to Architect Nyaito. We brought in the issue of project management. Now you have different aspects of a project, and they all appear to be doing the same thing. So imagine that a mason in your buildings, your mason and your carpenter and your painter and your electrician all happen to want to mix cement at the same time. How would that building grow?
Thank you, sir. Today we have places like the EFCC, we have the ICPC, you have the NFIU, you have the Nigerian police, you have so many others that should check that monster called corruption, which I would like to very humbly insist that we have not defined what corruption is. Number two, we have not gone into the types of corruption. Because except you define a project, you can't recruit people to do it. Now, let me just be as fast as I possibly can. Number one, what is corruption? Corruption is not just stealing. It is holistic. Corruption goes into the side that the police will handle on civil cases and everything. It goes into the office where you have people like the ICPC, the office holders. It goes into financial crimes when you have the EFCC. It goes into another one of the major, most important arms of fighting corruption has been completely neglected. For me, that's number one. For preventive, what is that? National Orientation Agency. That is the number one agency for addressing corruption, because for you to preempt people, you need to arm them with the information. You need to let them know. Look, I'll give you a little story. A little girl was going for a birthday party with his uncle, and the police stopped him. They asked for this, he gave. He asked for that, he gave. Time was going, and the little girl was getting impatient. At the time, he told his uncle, "Uncle, give them 20 naira, let us go." To that little girl, this uncle was just this greedy person who just will not part with common 20 naira, that just give to the police, we go. If our child thinks that way, where is our future? But going to homes, going to the orientation agency, they will let us know what patriotism is. They will let us know what is good and what is bad. These are the things that will preempt what will come into the monster that we call corruption. Secondly, are we aware that, I always say this and I stand by it, there are 3 types of corruption. There's a corruption of need, there's a corruption of greed, there's a corruption of lunacy. I'll quickly run into this. Corruption of need. A man goes home and his daughter is dying, the only child he has, and they need 100,000 for operation. He is keeping 100,000 in the office. He runs and picks. This is Friday. He hopes that by Monday he will return it. Unfortunately, the child is saved, and Monday he has not. They come in and audit it. He has stolen. That is a crime. But why did he do it? He did it to save his child. Is it right? Is it wrong? We can debate that. But the fact is, that is what I call corruption of need. Is it right? There's a punishment. He'll be punished. Okay? There's another guy who steals 10 million. He has to pay his rent and this and that and that. We call that corruption of, not 10, 50 million. 50 million is not for you to pay your rent. It's not for you to pay school fees. It's something else. Greed. But we are now going to a man who steals 100 billion. That is corruption of lunacy. That guy is lunatic because he knows that his entire family, his entire clan cannot expend that money in a lifetime. Now, when we define this, we bring in the different bodies to address them. National Orientation Agency, please let people know that the corruption of need, let's interface with the people and the system and see how we can. 90% of Nigerians are good people, God-fearing people, pushed into certain things that are wrong and should be punished because of necessity. Education. Even your Megad now sends his child to a private school. Megad. And yet my mother spent so little to take me to school because I had public schools. No public water supply, no public power, no public schools, no public health care. Everybody. And their salaries cannot take it. The system makes everybody to be corrupt. That's corruption of need. Corruption of greed can be handled by police and all those things. Those people should be locked and things like that. But EFCC, for instance, should be limited to the corruption of lunacy. Why should you have a guy that took your 200, the 10 million, 5 million, you are going to EFCC? Now, let's come to the final aspect of what roles each person should play. In the American system, you have the SEALs. Do you understand me? These are people that if you send them to a system, you know that these are not just ordinary soldiers. These are trained, and they don't like eagles, they don't catch flies. There are certain things they don't even go into. They go for the big. When you call EFCC, people need to be afraid. And then you now think in terms of the recruitment of these people. So I think that the different bodies that are there for 2 reasons. One is that for the right thing, each specialization. The second is that a lot of agencies are created for political expediency. And I hope that that's an aspect I would like to address as a final aspect before we leave. So please make sure you give me my 5 minutes on that particular part, on this corruption and the system that must be addressed.
Mr. Fusika, we talk of corruption all the time. But some people say that our society breeds corruption. A tuber of yam today is 1,500, 2,000. And you pay a man who has a family what we call in this country minimum wage. So at the end of every month, you give him 30,000 naira. Out of that, he's going to pay his rent, he's going to pay his children's school fees, he's going to feed his children, he's going to clothe them. How does all that happen out of 30,000 naira? And you expect him not to be corrupt? Same for the police force. Those who are supposed to keep us on the straight and narrow, prevent us from being corrupt. You give them maybe about 30,000 naira as well a month. So they come to work with bathroom slippers. Their uniforms are torn because they have to pay out of that 30,000 naira. They have to buy their uniforms themselves. It seems like our system breeds corruption. It is begging for corruption to happen. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't think that's the problem of the country. I don't think so, really. Okay. Because this idea of saying the system breeds corruption and all of us are corrupt and all that.
Say that.
No, it's not from you.
Thank you.
That's the general thing that, okay, we are all the same. I don't agree. And the reason why I don't agree is because that is not the reason, that is not the main problem we are facing in this country. Of course, you can look at the policeman, and I think I've mentioned it in this one of your programs before. You pay this example that you gave of paying somebody 30,000 naira. It's not even 30,000 naira. I think it used to be 18,000 naira until some. And the person has a wife, a number of children, and he comes to work every day. It comes to Alausa Secretariat. He's living at Okukumaiko. The transport from Okukumaiko to Alausa, and you see him every day, regularly reports, So everybody knows he's making ends meet somehow. But I don't think that's the problem we have in the country. The problem we have in the country, and I think we should address it, is the problem of the people we have put in offices, whether they say we elected them or they are appointed, and they go into this place and just grab and grab and grab and grab. That's why you don't have good public schools. That's why the health system is has failed and all that. It's not because of that nurse working in the hospital. That's not the reason why the hospital is not functioning. I don't agree. Of course, it's not something to be encouraged. We need to fight it. But the idea of saying, no, we have all sinned and come short of the glory, like the architect said, 90%, even I don't know, majority of Nigerians are good people. We are not all, of course, we are forced into situations where we have, even when you want to resist, you cannot, you go on the road, you are trying to get somewhere, you say you are not corrupt, the policeman comes with his, myriads of problems and all that, and you just want to get away from that place. You give him 20 naira. It's corruption. You are forced into it. We are conscripted, let me put it that way, to be party to the whole thing. But it doesn't, that's not the reason why they set up EFCC. It wasn't the reason why they set up ICPC. We set up these bodies to tackle the corruption that has brought Nigeria to its knees. And you find that in government.
Well, you see, those ones in government will tell you that anytime they come out, the man on the street or the man in their neighborhood is always asking them for one thing or the other. So they are forced to make up for the gap created by them taking care of those needs that the people bring their way. So they tell you, in other words, I'm doing this because of the people around me.
Which comes first, the chicken or the egg?
No, it's propaganda. That's the excuse of the politicians.
But
it's just propaganda.
Having put that out there, we do know that the way public service is structured is such that everything is catered for by the nation. So at the end of the day, if you're in public office, you could actually be there till you leave and your salary is not touched. So how is it that they still go ahead to take out of the
because they see that the country is not functioning well.
They can get away with it.
No, not only that they can get away with it, they see it's not functioning well. They have no hope that the country will ever get better.
And they don't want to make the country get better.
No, so what they try to do is to find solutions for themselves. The road is not good, buy a jeep. There's no water, dig a borehole. There's no electricity, buy a generator. Tomorrow, my children, there will be no public school, still enough to send them abroad. So it's that's the mentality behind some of these things. Apart from people who are just, would I say klepto, they just want to steal, even when they don't have the need for what they are stealing. But that's the mentality of most of the people we have in government. And I'm saying it generally, I'm not nasty. Because you can't really bring out, you have PDP, you have APC, you have, 79, 83 experience. I was in the secondary school then, but quite political, you know. You could see when they go to the National Assembly then, you always will know what UPN position will be, what PRP position will be, what MPN position will be. But since we started this, whatever, we've been complaining about National Assembly members taking money and all that. Have you ever seen any opposition in their midst? When it comes to that, it's the single party. They are united. So you look to the left, you look to the right, APC, PDP, there's no difference. You can even see, take Edo State, for instance, now. It's just an example. The one that flew the flag of PDP in 2016 is now the one flying the flag of APC in 2020. And the other way around. So it's the same party. That's one of the problems we have. We have managed to, I don't know how we did it, create a system where we just see going into government as an opportunity. It's just another opportunity to, make money in illegal ways and so on and so forth. And we have, taken that to all these institutions, ICPC, EFCC. You call it Economic and Financial Crime Commission. That's why I say if you have a commission, if you have a body that is in control of that organization, and you know what is going on in the organization. If you hear, for instance, that they've set up a section that is, that deals with land in EFCC, the boss should ask, what have we got to do with land matters? If there's a board, you understand what I'm saying? And I'm telling you, this is basic experience that we have. EFCC is just, they set it up because we have problem with the police. It's supposed to be, a special intervention agency because they've managed to turn it to police by another name. When you go to their station, it's just a police station, where they do the normal thing. And this thing became rampant in the last 5 years. Very bad. And I'm speaking as a lawyer who has interfaced with this fellow. So you hear some cases and you'll be wondering, what are you doing with this case? What's your business in this? It's a debt collector. If you don't know, EFCC is a debt collector. If I'm owing her now, business transaction, she can go there. And they'll find a way to make it criminal. They can say it's to bring it within economic and financial crime. They can say, when I collected the money now. I didn't intend to pay back, so it is 419. They manage to, so the organization is destroyed. Because this thing we are looking at now, don't look at Mago as whatever. If they intend to do anything with that organization, there has to be a clinical. They need to go into that place and clean, if it is still possible to clean up, because they've brought in so many corrupt individuals into that organization. The place reeks of corruption. So whether they remove this gentleman or they don't remove him now, if they need to do anything with that institution, you need to do I don't know, because we abandoned the police. Rather than addressing the problem of the police, we decided to create EFCC. We created the EFCC, now the same problem. Maybe we are going to create another institution to come and, no, not clean up. We abandon EFCC and create another one where we can go and build another building and put people there and say we've built it for so we are building an institution. That is what problem we are having in this.
Are we even abiding by the laws that set up the various institutions?
That's what I'm saying. If demand became, when you lionize, there's no system of even checking what is going on in this place. Take for instance, if somebody gives you work here now, there must be a way of checking what's your job description. How well are you performing on that job? There must be some way of appraising. You don't put somebody and say he's chairman or DJ. Nobody can talk to him. Nobody can control. Nobody checks whether he's even performing or performing the role of the thing. You've created a monster. That's what you've done.
As we wind down now, when a building is not functioning effectively, when the structure is defected from the foundation, do you continuously deal with the roof, or do you bring down the building to correct the defect?
Again, I need to warn you, you are chatting in on familiar territory. I don't sit here to quote law. If not so, the senior advocate will put me in trouble. Please stay on your media. But you are doing well, I must admit. Two things. The very first is that when you have a structure to renovate, to look into, to interrogate, you look at that structure and you look at the budget and you look at the essence. Then, based on your professional competence, you advise the owner that you are going to spend 20 million to renovate this structure, but it has major structural implications. At the end of 20 million, you are not going to have something that is substantially, safer. It might look nicer, paintings and everything. My advice to you is that it's a story building, but this story building will not last. Can you please let us demolish it and use this 20 million to build a bungalow that has probably certain levels that makes it look like a story building. It will give you a new building and it will be safe for you. That is the advice. Let me tell you for where we are today. We are trying to renovate a structure that is not structurally sound. Without addressing the structural element, instead we go on the aesthetics and everything. We can't stop corruption because corruption revolves around one element called election. You see, we all know how much money is spent on election. Hundreds of billions is spent on presidential election. Where do these monies come from? How can Magu resist the pressure for him to meet the needs of National Assembly members, of political leaders, of heads of parastatals that must deliver for the general election? How can the MD of NDDC resist the target that is given to fund election? Am I saying something that we don't all know as Nigerians? So we go back to the fundamentals. How do we address our elections? There is no National Assembly member that is going to set up rules that will implicate them or stop them from having money to prosecute the next election. It's not going to happen. There's no National Assembly member that is going to come to bring laws that will stop him from recruiting what he has spent. If we want to make a difference, that's why on June 12th, a group of eminent Nigerians came together. I had to look for them, run to them, to join them. Eminent Nigerians. I don't want to start calling names now. And they said, look, enough is enough. When I looked at something that they did, he said, you must even have your tax before you can be part of us. You must not have any criminal. It's not a political party. That is why when they say political party, some of them ran away and said, no, like my distinguished son, Agbakoba. He said, no, because it's not a political party. Mr. Patutomi said, I am in APC. I was in PDP before I went to YDP. So stay in your party. This is a body of nationalists who say, enough is enough. We're going to do something. And let me tell you, whether we like it or not, ready or not, a change has come. What's happening to Magu is a dress rehearsal. It's rehearsal for what is coming. And I want all Nigerians to be upbeat and ready for it.
All right, thank you very much. I'm afraid we have to go at this point in time. We're completely out of time. Architect Ezekiel Nyaitu, convener of Nigeria First, and Mr. Olumide Fusika, senior advocate of Nigeria. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing your insight with us today. Thank you.